The world went silent the moment my father's hand connected with my face. Not quiet, completely silent, like someone had yanked the audio cable from reality itself. The slap echoed through the graduation ceremony microphone, sharp and metallic, bouncing off stadium walls until it became something alive and vicious. 2,000 people watched my own father strike me on stage at my valedictorian ceremony. The moment that was supposed to crown 4 years of sacrifice became the moment everything shattered. My name is Rebecca. I'm 23, and I'm about to become a research biochemist. This is the story of how I made them pay for every year they tried to erase me. 3 seconds earlier, I had been standing at the podium, honor cords heavy against my neck, looking out at faces that had no idea what was coming. My speech trembled slightly in my hands, not from nerves, but from excitement. For once in my life, I was the center of attention for the right reasons. The stadium lights felt warm on my skin, like approval I'd never experienced. Then my mother's voice cut through the applause like broken glass. "You don't deserve to be up there, you pathetic little show-off." The crowd's murmur shifted instantly. Confusion rippled through the rows of families. I spotted my parents in the third section, my father already moving, his face twisted with something that looked like rage, but felt like shame. My mother stood beside him, her finger pointed at me like I was some kind of criminal. Before I could process what was happening, my father stormed the stage. Security tried to intercept him, but he was faster than they anticipated. His fingers clamped around my wrist, yanking me away from the microphone, and then his palm cracked across my cheek with enough force to snap my head sideways. The sound system caught everything. Every gasp, every whispered curse from the audience, every ragged breath I took as my vision blurred from the impact. My graduation cap fell to the ground, landing with a soft thud that somehow seemed louder than the slap itself. "You're nothing but a fraud in fancy clothes," he hissed directly into my ear, his grip still tight enough to leave marks. "We should have stopped this charade years ago." That's when something inside me shifted, not broke. Shifted, like tectonic plates finding a new position. The pain in my cheek felt distant compared to the crystal-clear realization flooding my mind. They hadn't come here to celebrate me. They had come here to destroy me, publicly, in front of everyone who mattered. For 23 years, I had been the invisible child in the Anderson family. My parents had poured everything into my older brother, Marcus. Private schools, music lessons, college funds, emotional support when he crashed 3 cars and dropped out of 2 universities. Meanwhile, I learned to cook for myself at age 12 because they were too busy managing his latest crisis to remember I existed. I had earned this moment entirely alone. 4 years of working 20-hour weeks while maintaining a 3.9 GPA. 3 summers spent in research labs instead of taking vacations. Nights when I fell asleep over textbooks because I couldn't afford to fail a single exam. Not when nobody was paying attention to whether I succeeded or disappeared entirely. The honor cords around my neck represented more than academic achievement. They represented every scholarship I had earned, every research grant I had written, every professor who had chosen me for opportunities my parents never knew existed. I had built this life from nothing, and now they wanted to tear it down because it made them look small. As security finally reached us, separating me from my father's grip, I caught sight of Marcus in the audience. He wasn't recording the chaos like everyone else. He was staring at his phone, scrolling social media like nothing unusual was happening. Even during my moment of public humiliation, I couldn't hold his attention. "Ma'am, are you injured?" The security officer's voice sounded far away, though he was standing right beside me. "Do you need medical attention?" I touched my cheek. It was already swelling, hot under my fingertips. The dean of students appeared next to me, her face pale with shock and fury. "Rebecca, I am so sorry. This should never have happened. We're handling this immediately." The audience had gone completely quiet now, waiting to see what would happen next. Some people held up phones, recording what would probably become a viral video within hours. Others looked away, uncomfortable witnessing something so private and painful in such a public space. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about the financial aid forms I had filled out every semester, the ones where I had to list my parents' income even though they hadn't contributed a single dollar to my education. I was thinking about the proxy documents they had asked me to sign last year. Just in case of emergencies, they had said, like they were doing me some kind of favor by trusting me with their financial information. They had no idea they had just given me the keys to their own destruction. "I'm fine," I told the dean, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'd like to finish my speech." She hesitated, glancing at the chaos in the audience where my parents were still arguing with security. "Rebecca, are you sure? We can postpone this? Handle it privately, "No." I picked up my fallen graduation cap, placed it back on my head, and walked back to the microphone. They interrupted me. "I'm going to finish what I started." The stadium fell silent as I gripped the podium. 2,000 people watched me adjust the microphone, clear my throat, and begin speaking as if nothing had happened. My voice carried clearly across the field, steady and strong. 4 years ago, I walked onto this campus with nothing but student loans and a promise to myself that I would earn every opportunity through merit alone. Today, I graduate summa cum laude with 3 research publications, 5 scholarships, and a job offer that will let me spend my life discovering new ways to help people. I paused, looking directly at the section where my parents sat. Some people believe success should be handed to you based on who you know or what family you were born into. Others believe you have to earn it through dedication, sacrifice, and the willingness to keep going, even when the people closest to you try to tear you down. Today proved which philosophy actually works. The applause that followed was thunderous, not polite graduation applause, something fiercer, more supportive. People were standing, cheering, not just for my academic achievements, but for my refusal to be broken by what they had just witnessed. I finished my speech without looking at my parents again. When I walked off the stage, clutching my diploma, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because the ceremony was over, but because I had finally seen them clearly. They weren't disappointed parents trying to keep me humble. They were people who couldn't tolerate my success because it highlighted their own failures. The next morning, back in my apartment, I sat reviewing every document they had ever asked me to sign. The proxy papers were more comprehensive than I had realized. They gave me authority to restructure their retirement accounts, adjust their investment portfolios, and make financial decisions in case of emergency or incapacitation. Being publicly humiliated by your own parents probably qualified as an emergency. By noon, I had moved their retirement funds into a protected trust that I controlled. I wasn't stealing their money. I was ensuring they couldn't waste it on Marcus's next failed venture or spend it all before they actually needed it. The fund would provide them with reasonable monthly payments, but the principal was now untouchable. I also discovered something that made my stomach drop. They had been using my credit report for years. My high credit score had helped them qualify for loans they couldn't otherwise get. They had been profiting from my responsibility while treating me like I was worthless. That afternoon, I sat across from an attorney in a downtown law office. "What they did constitutes identity theft," the attorney explained after reviewing my documentation. "You have grounds for both civil and criminal charges, but given that they're your parents, I'd recommend starting with a cease and desist letter and credit monitoring. Sometimes the threat of legal action is enough to stop the behavior." I chose a different approach. I made a video. "Yesterday, my parents publicly humiliated me at my own graduation ceremony," I began, sitting in my apartment with the certificate I had earned displayed prominently behind me. "Today, I want to tell you the full story of what happens when parents treat their children as either golden assets or invisible burdens." I laid out everything calmly and factually: the years of neglect, the financial manipulation, the constant message that I wasn't worth their time or attention. I showed the proxy documents they had asked me to sign, the trust I had created to protect their own retirement from their poor financial decisions. "I'm not destroying their future," I said directly to the camera. "I'm protecting it from themselves, the same way I've had to protect my own future from them my entire life." The video was live for exactly 6 hours before my phone started ringing. My parents had discovered the trust restructuring after trying to make a large withdrawal that afternoon, only to find their access restricted. "Rebecca, what the hell do you think you're doing?" My father's voice was shaking with rage. "You have no right to touch our money. Change it back immediately." I have every right, I said calmly. You gave me that right when you signed those documents. The money is safer now than it was before. You're stealing from us. I'm preventing you from stealing from yourselves and from me. I paused. Did you know identity theft is a federal crime, even when it's committed by family members? The line went quiet. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to apologize publicly for what you did at my graduation. You're going to remove yourselves from my credit accounts immediately, and you're going to leave me alone to build the life I've earned without your interference. And if we don't? My mother had grabbed the phone. Then my next video will include screenshots of every loan application where you used my information without permission. I'm sure the bank would be very interested to know how you qualified for that home equity line of credit. They hung up without another word. 3 weeks later, at my new apartment in Denver, where I'd started my research position, I received a package. They had somehow tracked down my new address, probably through the university's forwarding system since I hadn't given it to them directly. Inside was a handwritten letter from Marcus, the first time he had contacted me in over a year. I saw what happened at graduation, he wrote. I also saw the video you posted. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I'm sorry. I never stood up for you when I should have. I let them treat you like you were invisible because it made my life easier. That wasn't right. He was asking for a second chance. Not for money or favors, just for the opportunity to be the brother he should have been all along. I thought about it for a long time before responding. My parents had taught me that family was supposed to support each other unconditionally, but they had never applied that principle to me. They had shown me exactly what conditional love looked like, love that disappeared the moment I stopped making them comfortable. But Marcus had never hit me. He had never screamed at me in public or used my credit to benefit himself. His crime was indifference, not cruelty. Maybe that was something we could work on. I wrote him back. My parents never apologized. They never acknowledged what they did or attempted to make amends. Instead, they hired a lawyer to try to reverse the trust I had created, claiming I had somehow tricked them into signing documents they hadn't understood. The lawyer reviewed their case for exactly one consultation before declining to represent them. Apparently, signing legal documents while fully competent and then complaining about the consequences isn't grounds for fraud charges. Within 2 months, they had quietly given up the legal challenge and grudgingly accepted the monthly payments from the trust. They also complied with my demand to remove themselves from my credit accounts after I threatened to file criminal charges for identity theft. 6 months later, at a genetics conference in Boston, I presented research that could change how we treat certain genetic disorders. Afterward, a department head from Johns Hopkins approached me. She had seen my graduation video after it was shared in academic circles as an example of perseverance under pressure. I saw your graduation video, she said, but your work speaks much louder. We're starting a new research initiative next year. Interested in leading your own lab? The offer was everything I had dreamed of and more than I had dared to hope for. As I accepted, I realized my parents had accidentally given me the greatest gift of my life. They had shown me exactly who I was when stripped of their approval, their support, and their love. I was someone who could stand alone, think clearly under pressure, and build something meaningful from nothing. I was someone who didn't need them at all. That's the real lesson here. Sometimes the people who claim to love you are actually afraid of who you might become if you stopped seeking their approval. They try to keep you small not because they care about you, but because your growth forces them to confront their own limitations. The trust I created still sends my parents a monthly check. It's enough to live comfortably, but not enough to waste on Marcus's schemes or luxury vacations they can't afford. They hate that I control it, but they cash the checks every month anyway. We haven't spoken since they abandoned their lawsuit, and I prefer it that way. Marcus and I have established a cautious but genuine relationship over the past year. We talk every few weeks, mostly about his efforts to build a more responsible life and my research work. It's not the close sibling bond some families have, but it's honest and respectful, something I never thought possible before. He's proven through consistent actions that he's serious about being a better brother. I learned the difference between earned love and demanded love the day my father's hand met my face in front of 2,000 witnesses. It was the moment I stopped being their invisible daughter and became my own person entirely. If this resonates with you, drop a comment about the moment you realized you were worth more than how someone else treated you. And hit subscribe if you're ready to stop apologizing for taking up space in your own life. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.